The text came in at 7:18 on a Friday night while I was standing in the frozen food aisle, holding 2 boxes of waffles and wondering when my life had become this exciting. I almost ignored it. Then, I saw the message. I'm in the red dress by the window. Please don't make this weird. I haven't been on a date in 11 years. Now, I don't know what kind of man you imagine receives texts like that, but I'm 46, divorced, and my most committed relationship at the time was with a grocery store rotisserie chicken. My name is Daniel Price. I teach auto shop at a community college in Ohio, own one decent jacket, and had not been the guy waiting for a woman in a red dress by a window in a very long time. So I did what any responsible adult would do. I stared at my phone like it had accused me of a crime. The number wasn't saved. No name. No clue. A second text followed. Also, if I panic and leave, tell me I'm not allowed to. My sister made me promise. I should have typed. Wrong number. That would have been simple. Clean. Mature. Instead, I stood there with waffles getting soft in my hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Concern. Because whoever she was, she sounded brave and terrified at the same time. And I knew that feeling. After my marriage ended, people kept telling me to get back out there, like dating was a swimming pool and not a cold lake full of emotional snakes. I typed carefully. I think you may have the wrong number, but for what it's worth, you're allowed to be nervous. You still showed up. 3 little dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Oh my God. I smiled despite myself. I'm so sorry. I'm going to crawl under this table and die now. Please don't, I wrote. That seems hard on the restaurant staff. There was a pause. Then, you're nicer than the man I was supposed to text. That sentence should have been the end of it. Instead, it was the beginning. Her name, I learned 3 messages later, was Claire Bennett, 42, single mom. Her son was 10 and at a sleepover for the first time in months, which was the only reason her sister had managed to bully her into downloading a dating app. The man she was supposed to meet was named Brad, which already sounded like a problem to me, though I tried to remain fair to all Brads as a group. She was at a little Italian place downtown called Marino's. I knew it. Everybody knew Marino's. Good bread, terrible parking, lights dim enough to make everyone look like they were about to confess something. Brad was 15 minutes late. Then, 20. Claire texted, I think I've been stood up. I looked down at my cart. Waffles. Chicken. A bag of salad I was absolutely pretending I would eat. There are moments in life when you can feel a door open, even if you're too old and too tired to believe in dramatic nonsense. This was one of those moments. I wrote, Do you want me to keep texting until you finish your bread? She replied, That is both pathetic and exactly what I need. So I did. I stood in aisle 7 and texted a stranger through what should have been her first date in 11 years. I asked her what kind of bread they'd brought. Warm, dangerous, the kind that makes you believe in butter again. I asked if the red dress was as impressive as advertised. She wrote, It still has the tag tucked in the back because I wasn't sure I was keeping it. That made me laugh out loud, which caused an older woman near the peas to look at me like frozen vegetables deserved silence. Then, Claire sent one more message. I know this is ridiculous, but can I tell you something honest since I'll never meet you? My thumb hovered over the screen. Sure. The reply came slowly. I'm not sad he didn't show up. I'm scared I'm relieved. I stopped laughing. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. Somewhere a freezer kicked on. The waffles in my hand were definitely losing their structural integrity. I understood her too well. I had been relieved when dates canceled. Relieved when conversations died. Relieved when life stayed small because small felt safe. After my divorce, I told myself I was healing, but some nights I was just hiding with better vocabulary. I typed, maybe part of you already knew he wasn't the right man to walk toward. A minute passed. Then Claire wrote, that sounds like something a good man would say. I stared at those words longer than I should have. Then, another message arrived. Brad just walked in. My stomach tightened, which made no sense at all. I didn't know this woman. I had no claim, no place, no reason to care whether some late dating app guy with a terrible name sat across from her. But then, Claire sent a final text. He's not alone. Sometimes you just sit beside someone while they decide whether to turn the key. I typed, "You don't have to be polite to people who made you feel small before they even sat down." The message showed delivered. No answer. I stared at the screen until my cart drifted slightly and bumped the freezer door. A teenage stock boy looked over like he was wondering if I needed supervision. Then Claire sent, "He's introducing us." A moment later, he said, "Claire, this is Monica." She wanted to make sure I was meeting someone normal. I felt my jaw tighten. Normal. There are words people use when they want to insult you while keeping their hands clean. I wrote, "Stand up." She replied, "What?" "Stand up. Put your napkin on the table. Smile if you can. Then leave." I regretted sending it the second my thumb lifted. Who was I to give orders to a stranger in a restaurant? Some divorced shop teacher holding salad he didn't want? But Claire answered, "My legs are not currently taking suggestions." So I did the only thing I could do. I called her. The phone rang once, twice. When she answered, her voice was low and tight. "Daniel?" I had not known how much I wanted to hear my name in her voice until it happened. "Hi," I said, standing between frozen pizza and breakfast sausage like a man in a very unimpressive rescue scene. "You're going to pretend this is an urgent call." "What?" "Work with me, Claire." A tiny breath, almost a laugh. "Okay." I pitched my voice louder, clean and steady. "Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been an issue with your son's overnight bag." She went still on the other end. Then she caught on. "Is he okay?" "Completely fine," I said. "But you're needed." There was a pause. In the background, a man said, "Is everything all right?" Brad, I assumed. He sounded exactly like someone who owned too many vests. Claire's voice changed. Not louder. Stronger. "I'm sorry," she said away from the phone. "I have to go." Another woman's voice, smooth as a knife. "Already?" And then Claire did something that made me like her before I had any right to. She said, "Yes, already." I heard the scrape of a chair, a rustle, the faint clink of silverware. For one heartbeat, I thought she'd made it. Then Brad said, "Come on, Claire." We just sat down. "Monica's just protective." Claire didn't answer. I heard her breathing. I moved without thinking, pushing my cart toward the front of the store, waffles forgotten, salad swinging. "Claire," I said quietly, "you do not have to defend your dignity to a committee." That silence changed. It got warmer. When she spoke, her voice was soft enough that I barely caught it. "I'm putting cash on the table." "Good. I'm taking the bread." I smiled despite myself. "Excellent. That bread has been through too much to be abandoned." There was a muffled sound, like she'd covered the phone to keep from laughing. Then footsteps. Restaurant noise. A door opening. Traffic hushing in from the street. "I'm outside," she said. Only then did I realize I was standing by the self-checkout with a cart full of groceries I no longer remembered choosing. The cashier looked at my waffles. "You buying those?" "Apparently," I said. Claire exhaled into the phone. It shook a little on the way out. "You didn't have to do that." "I know. Most men would have told me to be nice." "I teach teenagers how to rebuild engines," I said. "I've seen what happens when people ignore warning lights." That time she laughed for real. It was brief, uneven, and beautiful, in the way relief can be beautiful when it finally gets air. "I'm sitting on a bench outside Marino's," she said. "In a red dress I might still return." Holding stolen bread. "You paid for it?" "I left $9. "Then it's emotionally acquired bread." She laughed again, and I found myself leaning against the bagging area like the sound had moved something in my chest. Then her voice turned careful. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Would it be strange if I asked you not to hang up yet? I looked at the glowing checkout screen telling me to place my item in the bagging area. I looked at the waffles, the salad, the life I'd been keeping quiet and manageable for 3 years. "No," I said. "It would be strange if I wanted to." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, faintly, I heard a man's voice through her phone. "Claire, wait." "Brad." And before I could ask if she was okay, Claire whispered, "He followed me outside." I stayed leaning against that self-checkout bagging area for exactly 1 second after Claire whispered that Brad had followed her outside. Then I moved. Not heroically. Not like a man in a movie. More like a divorced 48-year-old shop teacher who suddenly realized he was standing beside frozen waffles while a woman he barely knew was being cornered outside a restaurant. "Claire," I said, already pushing my card away from the register, "can you stand up?" "I'm sitting," she whispered. "I know." "Stand up if you can. Don't let him loom over you." There was a rustle on her end. The bread bag crinkled. The cashier called after me. "Sir? Your groceries?" I looked at the cart, then at the automatic doors, then back at the cart. "Keep the waffles," I said. She blinked. "Sir, we don't keep waffles." "Then release them into the wild." I left the cart beside customer service and walked into the cold Ohio evening with my phone pressed to my ear. Through the line, Brad's voice got clearer. "Claire, come on. Don't do this dramatic thing." Her voice came back steadier than I expected. "I'm going home." "You're embarrassing me." That sentence did something ugly inside my chest. Not because I knew Claire. Not really. I knew her laugh, her nerves, and that she stole bread with accountability, but I knew that tone. My ex-wife, Melissa, used to shrink whenever her father spoke to her that way at family dinners. Like her feelings were a mess someone else had to apologize for. Claire said, "I'm embarrassing you?" Brad sighed, big and wounded. "Monica just wanted to meet you." "On our first date?" "Well, you have a kid?" "I have kids. Adults should be practical." I stopped beside my truck. A kid. Of course, she had mentioned being a single mom in the title of her life. But not in our messages. She had carried that detail quietly, like something people had taught her to apologize for. Claire's voice hardened. "My son is not a scheduling concern, Brad. Don't twist it. I'm saying it matters. Dating a woman with a teenage son is complicated." Teenage son. My hand paused on the truck door handle. I taught juniors and seniors at Westbrook Vocational. Engines, brakes, electrical systems, and the occasional lesson on not solving heartbreak with a burnout in the student parking lot. Half my students had last names I recognized from grocery receipts and parent emails. Brad kept going. "Monica thinks you might be looking for someone to step in. Financially, emotionally, whatever." Silence. That was the kind of silence that made me want to put my fist through something expensive. Claire said very quietly, "You brought your ex-wife to see if I was a burden. Don't say it like that. How else should I say it?" I opened my truck door, climbed in, and started the engine. "Claire," I said, "where is your car?" "Across the side lot, near the bank." "Can you walk there?" "I can." "Do that." Brad's voice sharpened. "Who are you talking to?" Claire didn't answer him. Footsteps started through my speaker. I pulled out of the grocery store lot too fast, then forced myself to slow down because getting pulled over would not improve anyone's evening. "Claire," I said, "I'm walking. You're doing fine." "I don't feel fine." "You don't have to feel fine to leave." There was a breath on the line. Then, because apparently the woman could be funny while being emotionally mugged in a parking lot, she said, "I still have the bread." Good. Evidence of survival. A laugh escaped her, shaky and small. Then Brad said, closer now, "Claire, stop." Her footsteps stopped. So did my breathing. "I said stop," he repeated. Claire's voice changed. It went low and clear. "Brad, if you take one more step toward me, I'm going back inside and asking the hostess to call the police." For a second, all I heard was traffic. Then a woman's voice cut through the night. "Brad?" Let her go. Monica. Well, there was a twist. Brad snapped. Stay out of it. No, Monica said. I should have stayed out of it at the table. Not now. I turned onto Maple, 2 blocks from Marino's. Monica's voice came closer to Claire's phone. Claire, I'm sorry. He told me you wanted to meet me. He said you were nervous about the kids. Claire let out a stunned breath. He said what? Brad muttered something I couldn't catch. Monica did not mutter. He does this. He makes women audition for a role he hasn't even earned the right to offer. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. Claire said, I didn't know I was auditioning. You weren't, Monica said. He was. That line landed so cleanly I wanted to applaud the woman. I pulled into the side lot by Marino's and parked under a flickering lamp. For the first time I saw her. Claire Bennett stood near a silver sedan in a red dress, holding a paper bag of bread against her chest like it was the last solid thing in the world. Her hair was brown and loose around her shoulders, her posture too proud to be called fragile. Brad stood several feet away, handsome in the glossy way of men who check their reflection in dark windows. Monica was beside the restaurant door, arms crossed, looking tired of his entire personality. I got out of the truck but didn't rush in. Claire had handled herself. I wasn't there to rescue her like she was helpless. I was there because she had asked me not to hang up. Her eyes found me across the lot. Recognition moved across her face slowly, impossibly. She lifted the phone from her ear. Daniel? She called. Hearing my name in her real voice, not filtered through a speaker, hit harder than it should have. I raised one hand. Hi. Brad turned toward me. Who the hell are you? Before I could answer, Claire's phone lit up in her hand. She glanced down automatically. Her face changed. Not fear this time. Shock. She looked from the screen to me. What? I asked. She turned the phone so I could see the message. Mason, Mom, why is my auto shop teacher standing in the parking lot with you? The message hung between us in the parking lot, glowing on Claire's phone like the universe had developed a sense of humor. Mason, Mom, why is my auto shop teacher standing in the parking lot with you? Claire still stood near her silver sedan, holding that paper bag of bread against her chest. I was by my truck, one hand half raised like an idiot who had wandered into the wrong movie. Brad was near the restaurant, glaring at me. Monica stayed by the door with her arms crossed, looking like she had reached the end of every man's sentence. I cleared my throat. That's a fair question. Claire blinked at me. Then, despite everything, she laughed. Not a pretty little laugh. A real one. The kind that breaks through panic like sunlight through blinds. Brad did not appreciate the lighting change. Auto shop teacher, he said, looking between us. Claire, are you serious? Claire lowered her phone. I accidentally texted him instead of you. Brad's face twisted. And he came here? I asked him not to hang up, she said. That doesn't answer my question. I took one step forward, slow enough that nobody could mistake it for a challenge. She was uncomfortable. I was nearby. Brad gave me a cold smile. So you make a habit of running to lonely women in parking lots? There it was. The sentence meant to make her shrink. I saw Claire's shoulders tighten. Before I could speak, she did. No, she said. He made a habit tonight of listening when I said I was uncomfortable. You should try it sometime. Monica muttered, Amen. Brad snapped, You don't even know this guy. Claire looked at me then, really looked. The bread bag crinkled under her fingers. No, she said softly, but I know how I felt talking to him. That shut me up more effectively than anything Brad could have said. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Mason, seriously, is Mr. Price okay? Are you okay? Claire's face changed in that instant. The woman in the red dress, the woman who had walked out of a humiliating dinner with stolen bread and a shaking voice, became a mother. I need to call my son, she said. Brad scoffed. Of course. Mason again. Every ounce of warmth left her face. Careful, she said. It was only one word, but even I felt the temperature drop. Brad held up his hands. I'm just saying, this is why dating you is complicated. There's always some emergency, some school thing, some mention of your dead husband. Stop, I said. I didn't yell. I taught teenagers around engines, sparks, and moving parts. You learn the tone that cuts through noise. Brad looked at me. Excuse me? You don't get to use her son or her husband as a weapon because you're embarrassed. Claire went very still. Monica's arms slowly uncrossed. Brad's jaw worked. You don't know anything about it. No, I said, but I know enough. Claire's eyes shone, but she didn't look weak. She looked like someone who had been carrying dignity alone for a long time and had just realized she could set down one corner of it. She lifted the phone and called Mason. I stayed where I was. Brad stayed where he was. Monica watched him like a security camera with earrings. Hey, honey, Claire said, her voice turning gentle. I'm okay. I could hear Mason faintly through the speaker, anxious and young. Then why is Mr. Price there? Claire looked at me, and a smile tugged at her mouth. Because your mother accidentally texted the wrong person, and apparently he's the kind of man who shows up when someone sounds scared. There was a pause. Then Mason said, That sounds like him. I had to look away for a second. Teenagers don't hand out praise like candy. You earn it in nickels over months. Claire listened, nodding even though he couldn't see her. No, I'm leaving now. Yes, I have my keys. No, I did not cry in the restaurant. Another pause. She glanced at the bag. I may have stolen bread. Mason said something that made her laugh again. Then her smile softened. I love you too. I'll be home soon. She ended the call and held the phone against her chest beside the bread. Brad looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less convincing. I think we're done, Claire said to him. He gave a bitter laugh. Because of one bad dinner? No, she said, because I finally heard myself trying to explain why I deserved basic kindness. I'm too old for that, Brad, and too tired. Monica stepped away from the restaurant door. I'll drive him home. Brad turned on her. Monica, no, she said. You are absolutely not driving angry after humiliating one woman and insulting a dead man in front of a teacher who looks like he knows how to use a tire iron. I do, I said. Claire looked at me. For tires, I added. That did it. She laughed again, and this time it sounded less shaky. Brad cursed under his breath and walked toward Monica's car. Monica paused beside Claire. I'm sorry, she said. Claire nodded. Me too. Then Monica followed Brad, leaving the two of us under the flickering parking lot light with nothing but traffic noise, cooling embarrassment, and a paper bag full of stolen bread. Claire looked down at herself. Well, this is not how I pictured my first date in 11 years. I walked a little closer, stopping several feet away. For what it's worth, I don't think that counted as a date. No? No. More like a hostage negotiation with appetizers. She smiled, then pressed her lips together as emotion rose behind it. My husband Aaron died when Mason was 6, she said quietly. Brain aneurysm. No warning. 1 minute we were arguing about replacing the dishwasher, and the next, she looked past me. After that, every man felt like a risk I couldn't afford. Brad was supposed to be me trying again. I swallowed. I'm sorry. I know people say that because they don't know what else to say. I don't, I admitted, but I mean it. She looked back at me. The space between us changed. Not dramatic. Not movie music. Just two adults standing in a parking lot, both old enough to know life could be cruel, and both surprised by a little mercy. I should go home, she said. You should. Neither of us moved. And you should probably get your groceries, she added. I abandoned waffles for you. Her eyebrows lifted. That's serious. It was a 2-box situation. She smiled, but her eyes stayed on mine. Daniel. Hearing my name like that did something dangerous to my common sense. Yeah? Thank you for coming. But more than that, she took a breath. Thank you for not making me feel foolish. I stepped closer, just one step. Claire, if anyone looked foolish tonight, it was the man who brought an ex-wife to dinner and lost to a shop teacher with no waffles. She laughed through a tear. Then she reached out and touched my sleeve. Lightly, like she was asking a question without trusting her voice. I covered her hand with mine. I don't want to make your life complicated, I said. Mason is my student. You're coming off a terrible night. I'm not going to pretend this is simple. No, she said, don't pretend. So I didn't. I felt something on that phone call, I said. Before I knew what you looked like, before I knew Mason was your son, I felt like I was talking to someone I didn't want to stop knowing. Her fingers tightened on my sleeve. I felt it too, she whispered. I leaned in slowly enough that she could step back. She didn't. The kiss was soft, brief, and probably tasted faintly like nerves and restaurant bread. But when she pulled away, her forehead rested against mine for one quiet second, and I knew something in my life had shifted. Then her phone buzzed again between us. She looked down. Mason, if Mr. Price is still there, tell him I said don't be weird. Also bring cannoli. Claire stood by her silver sedan with her phone pressed to her chest, the paper bag of bread tucked under one arm, and my hand still holding hers like neither of us had gotten the memo that the kiss was over. I glanced at the screen and laughed. For the record, I'm deeply offended your son assumes I'd be weird. Claire wiped under one eye with her knuckle. Daniel, you drove across town after abandoning frozen waffles to rescue a woman you met by wrong number. Fair, she typed with one thumb. Claire, he's being normal. Mostly. And I'm not bringing cannoli, unless you unload the dishwasher. 3 dots appeared immediately. Mason, fine. But if he comes to the house, I'm grading his parking. Claire showed it to me, and the nervousness that crossed her face told me the joke had opened a real door. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. Not tonight. Her eyes searched mine. I'd like to meet him properly, I said. Not after a parking lot drama and not as the guy who kissed his mom before dessert. Tonight you go home, eat stolen bread with your son, and tell him whatever feels right. And you? I go back and see if the grocery store filed a missing person report on my waffles. She laughed, softer this time. Before she got in her car, I walked her to the driver's door. No big romantic speech. Just my hand resting on the top of the door while she looked up at me like she was still deciding if Hope was safe. Text me when you get home, I asked. I was going to accidentally text you anyway. 2 weeks later, I met Mason as Claire's son, not just my student. He opened the front door wearing a Browns hoodie and the expression of a teenager prepared to defend the kingdom. Mr. Price, he said. Mason, you hurt my mom, I'll fail your class. You currently have a B-. I'll find a way, Claire called from the kitchen. Mason Bennett, he stepped aside, trying not to smile. She made lasagna. Don't compliment it too much. She gets suspicious. That first dinner was awkward for about 12 minutes. Then Mason asked me about rebuilding an old Mustang. Claire accused both of us of speaking in engine noises, and somehow I ended up under their kitchen sink fixing a leak while wearing one of Aaron's old flannel shirts because I'd gotten sauce on mine. Claire went quiet when she saw it. I started to take it off. I'm sorry. I didn't think. No, she said, touching the cuff. It's okay. That was how we learned to move forward. Not by pretending the past had vanished, but by making room for it at the table. There were careful months after that. I spoke to the principal before anything could look improper. Mason stayed in my class, but I kept every boundary clean enough to pass inspection by the harshest school board member in Ohio. Claire and I dated on Friday nights when Mason was at his friend Eli's house. Sometimes we went to nice restaurants. Sometimes we sat in my truck eating takeout because both of us were too tired to be impressive. Our first real argument happened over a shelf. I installed it crooked. Claire insisted it was fine. I insisted it was not. She finally said, Daniel, I don't need everything in my life repaired. That landed harder than she meant it to. So I put down the drill, sat beside her on the floor and said, Then tell me when you want help and when you just want company. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Company. I became very good at company. A year later, Mason graduated. When he crossed the stage, Claire cried into my jacket, and Mason rolled his eyes from 20 yards away like we were personally embarrassing him in front of democracy. Afterward, he hugged his mother, then looked at me. "You're still weird," he said. "I've grown as a person." "No." Then he hugged me too. Quick, crushing, and gone before anyone could make a big deal of it. Claire and I got married the following spring in her backyard under a rented white tent. Nothing fancy. Mason walked her halfway down the aisle, then stopped, kissed her cheek, and put her hand in mine. "Don't mess this up," he whispered. "I won't." Claire heard him and laughed through tears. At the reception, someone placed a basket of bread on our sweetheart table as a joke. Claire picked up a roll, held it like evidence, and said, "This marriage began with theft." "And waffles," I added. "And one wrong number," she said. 3 years have passed since that night outside Marino's. Mason is studying mechanical engineering now, though he still texts me pictures of badly parked cars with the caption, "Is this you?" Claire and I bought a small house with a garage big enough for my tools and a kitchen bright enough for her basil plants. Some evenings, after dinner, she'll lean against the counter and text me from 6 feet away. "Claire, are you available to rescue a woman from a terrible date?" And I'll look up at my wife, at the laugh lines I love, at the life I never expected to find in the middle of a grocery run, and text back, "Me, only if she steals bread." What would you have done if a single mom accidentally texted you instead of her date and ended up needing help in a parking lot? And have you ever had one wrong message reveal feelings you didn't know how to name? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.